Good morning, Jubilee community. Go ahead and, in our weird little virtual world these days, go ahead and say hi to the person next to you. Hello, lovely person. Hello, lovely person. It's so good to see everyone here on a beautiful Sunday morning. We are this community, and we're this community of faith that are coming together in vital and involved and committed and loving ways to interact with this world as the way God calls us. And there's so many people here doing that in so many different ways. So it's this web that we are weaving and coming together Sunday morning to share that web. So as always, we're going to do this hopefully 2-minute orientation. If you are able to, turn on your video because it's so good to see each other's faces. It's part of the reason we're here. You do that by going to the lower left and clicking video. We encourage sanity by having everyone on mute, except at the very end of the last song, then you will all be unmuted. And also during the breakout sessions, we have a short passing of the peace in the middle of the celebration, and then we have a longer connection time at the end, and at those periods of time you'll be able to unmute yourself as well. We also really want you to be involved. It's so weird to be looking at these weird screens and being like 2-dimensional, and so like get yourself into 3-dimensional spaces by bringing your bowls and bells and your candles and your incense and turning with the directions and all of that kind of stuff. Also engagement in the chat room over to the side. You can click that chat button at the bottom to get involved that way. And also the way we clap is we wave. Yay! So, and then lastly, just take a nice big deep breath. Feel your toes and your feet. Notice the trees around you. See all the lovely people that are in this call together. If you want to see them, you can hit the upper right-hand corner where it says speaker view or gallery view. If you just want to hear who the speaker is, put it on speaker view. All right, another breath or two. So I feel called like every week to say, to start the celebration with, it's another beautiful day in the Blue Ridge Mountain. And it is another beautiful day in the Blue Ridge Mountain. The sun is shining, the birds are singing. But there's also another part of me that's just as alive. And that part's heavy. That's the part that's really engaged with the devastation being caused by the pandemic, with the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Tony McDade and all of our Black and brown people over the weeks, months, and centuries. The police response to the protest. So I can't just go into the light today. There's both of those are living in me simultaneously. And it's one of the things I love about this community is that we celebrate life. We celebrate all of life. All of this is part of it. The vias, which are such a foundation of us, and if we were standing in our space together, I'd point to those beautiful banners that live on the south wall. But they remind us that while joy and awe is a path to the holy, so is pain and suffering. And that when we are with our pain and suffering, or the pain and suffering of others, that's what leads to creativity and transformation. And that's what we're being called to right now, is transformation. And I don't know about you, but when I'm in those sort of dark, scary, unknown places, I try to scurry around and fix it and change it real fast. And it often comes from this uncentered and ungrounded place. So this week I started scurrying around and trying to figure out what to do. And then I sat and I listened and I figured out my particular way forward. And it reminds me of a time years ago, like at least 75 years ago, before it was hip and cool. I spent some time in Spain and I did the pilgrimage. It's called the Way, or the Camino De Santiago. And the year before that, I had spent it in an ashram. So I decided I was going to be all Buddhist monk about this trip. And I was only going to eat what was given to me by nature or people. So I'm walking like 10 or 20 miles a day, drinking a ton of water, and eating very little. And I screwed up my electrolytes and ended up having a seizure. And luckily, I was surrounded by angels in the form of German EMTs that had bought me dinner that night. So after a day of vomiting, I was back on the trail and I was alone. And that day I got lost for the first time. And I got scared. I got really scared. And I started to panic, and I was scurrying around looking for the trail, and like for an hour and not finding it. And I went into all the worst case scenarios, and I went into the fear. And finally, I just heard this voice say, sit down. And so I did. And then I heard that same voice say, just eat something. And so I did. I took out an apple. And as I sat sort of scared and lost on this hillside, eating an apple, I suddenly looked up, and there was the trail. There was my way forward. And I knew what to do. And that's what we're celebrating today. We're celebrating hard times and sacred rest. We're celebrating the pause that's often needed to find our way forward as we move into transformation. And so with that, I will turn it over to Yona to open our sacred space together and call in the directions.
Good morning, Jubilee. Can you hear me? Thank you, Jackie. Hard times are holy rest. And I think I'm probably in the midst of holy rest right now, being surrounded by nature out here. My name is Yona French Hawk. For you that may not know me, I am the Jubilee Minister of Native American Ritual and Ceremony. And part of my call to action of what's going on during these times is to do my part, not only as a Cherokee, but as a resident of this earth, and the heritage that goes with my Cherokee lineage connected to these mountains and these woods is to make sure that the language of nature is remembered. And there have been hard times, but in this holy rest have been able to come back to a place to refocus and recenter. And maybe this is the destination we're trying to get back to when we say when things go back to normal. So I ask you to take a deep breath, center yourself. And if you know where you are, if you're outside, face toward the sun, as we ask the ancestors to come and to be with us, and to help us to know that in the next breath, we can know the calmness of the holy rest while we are also living in the times of the unrest or hard times. So if you will, face to the east with me. Oh, spirits of the east, to the morning star, the sun, and we welcome you in your warmth and your light. In these times of darkness, we ask you to share more of your warmth and your light with us so that we might find the clear path to the future that's been prayed for us. We ask you, ancestors, to continue to love us and to support us in this way. Stand with us as we face toward the future and uncertainty. Help us to breathe the next breath in surety and certainty and faith that goodness is within. Come, be with us this day in a good way. I hope. Faith to the oh, spirits of the South, we thank you. We thank you, all the beings of the water nations. We thank you for your medicine, and we thank you for coming and quenching our thirst as we question what to do next. We encourage you to continue to nurture our seeds so that we grow to the light, and that we grow in certainty, and we grow strong, knowing our roots. Come and be with us, and know that we love you in a good way, I hope. You face to the west, please. Oh, spirits of the west, to the ancestors that have gone before, we ask you to hear us in this time. You have lived the ancient past, and now you live the ancient future, and we ask you to share the messages of how to live and thrive in these times. We ask you to remind us of the laughter and the tears, of the sadness and the angst, and all the things that we've had to do in life in order to be where we are this day. Within our hearts, we ask to find the balance of unity, oneness, and harmony. Let the diversity of the world be the thing that brings us together as one indigenous tribe of this earth. We ask you, ancestors of the future and ancestors of the past, to come and be with us, sit with us, and share in a good way, I hope. Face to the north, please. The whole spirits of the north. To all the beings and creatures of the Wind Nation, we thank you. We thank you for the bountiful air that we breathe. Help to remind us with the beauty and the wind and the songs of the wind that we are blessed. And help us to know to be in gratitude, to give back to nature and the songs of the birds and all the things that we see in life. We ask you, Wind Nation, to continue to come to us so that we might breathe life into our visions of the future. We love you and we honor you and thank you for all that you do for us. We ask you to continue to come. Know that you're always welcome here in our hearts and our spirits, in a good way, I hope. Face center, please. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Ancestors of the universe and the ancestors that live within our hearts and our souls. We raise our voice, whether it's in silence with thought in our heart and our spirit, or whether it's what comes from our heart and our spirit. We speak these things to awaken the dormant things that might need the vibrational prayers of time and to be brought to life with awareness and being awakened to what's happening in this time. We ask all those dormant energies and powers and medicines that we have inside our own spirit to awaken and come to be with us. Teach us the ways of nature. Teach us the language of nature and all things. Help us to know that we are just one part of this great earth and all of life. Remind us to love, with compassion, honor, and in a good way, to live our lives with integrity, I hope. And in a good way, thank you. And over to Daniel.
Thank you, Yona. So this morning, we're going to do a song, a Stephen Foster song. We've done it at Jubilee before, but it's been a while. But the time feels just right. And I'm going to try to share my screen here. Are you guys seeing that? Seeing the words? So, while we seek mirth and beauty and music light and gay, there are frail forms fainting at the door. So I was trying to think about what to say before this, and it wasn't quite coming to me, but just sort of leave it at look into your heart and notice whatever is there, and then notice that you're not the only one, that you're not alone, and that by serving others, sometimes that's how we can find ourselves. So you have an opportunity to serve others right now by clicking on the link in the chat and giving some money for people to feed themselves with and to eat that apple so that they can find that trail in front of them. While we seek mirth and beauty and music light and gay, times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. There's pale drooping maiden who toils her life away with a worn out heart whose better days are over. Her voice it would be merry to sighing all the day. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. We never did the first verse, did we? And now there's another question. Did you sing? Because if you're not singing, it's not working. So here we go. Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears while we all sup sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Oh, hard times come again no more.
So beautiful, Daniel. Barbara, I think you're up. There
I
you
thought Terry's up.
go. Nope, you're up.
Oh, okay. I have the wrong order of service. Okay. So, Daniel, that was beautiful. So apropos. Thank you so much. And Jackie, I loved your story too about the Camino. That was so powerful. And at this time, before we light our candles to pray, I have a story I'd like to share. About a decade ago, I was really stuck. I just couldn't get a clear read on my next steps in life. And a good friend at the time said, Barbara, you're like an overflowing teapot. Why don't you take a few days to empty out? So I did. I drove to the Mountain Light Center in Highlands. I rented a cabin for 3 days and went into silence. No phone, no computer, no information coming in, just me. I walked, I meditated, but mostly I just sat still outside. Gazing at the mountains, hours passed by, yet it felt like minutes. This strong, palpable sense of peace rose up from deep within me. And it's a peace that stayed with me ever since. And I knew that I was this peace at my core. It had simply been buried through all my busyness. That peace is the essence of each of us. Breathe deeply. As we enter this time of prayer, if you'd like to pray with someone privately, Jackie and Daniel will be available at the Western Wall in the chat box. And you can also voice your prayers by clicking on everyone in the chat box. As I light this candle, Please also light yours if you have one. This candle illuminates the truth of peace that each of us is at our core. I invite you also to close your eyes and place a hand on your heart and breathe deeply through your heart. Holy One, we now relax and let go of all tension, stress, and strain as we slow down and settle more fully into our bodies and hearts with each deep breath. We're grateful as we envision pure white love and light entering through our hearts, expanding through every cell from our head to our toes, filling us with a deep sense of peace, rest, well-being, and love. We're so grateful to allow everything in us to slow down to this place of quiet and stillness. And from this place of stillness and peace, we offer up our prayers to the divine altar of love. And after allowing ourselves to feel all of it, we leave on the altar all the pain that's been taken from our peace and the peace of our Black brothers and sisters. All the fear, sadness, shame, grief, guilt, blame, anger, rage, ignorance, and judgments. We offer all that up. We offer up every thought, feeling, and action of racism, bigotry, violence, social injustice, and inequity towards anyone of color, past, present, and future. We offer up every struggle for air to breathe. We leave it all in the holy altar of divine love, and we ask that all of it be burned, dissolved, and transmuted into love, joy, honor, compassion, peace, wisdom, racial equity, unity, and freedom. Now let us enter into the silence together for a few moments and each offer up your own prayers in the silence to the holy altar of love. And from this place of silence, we affirm that we're willing to slow down, embody this peace, and be a safe respite for ourselves and others, to be available for healing for our families, our local, national, and global communities, and all communities of color for the highest and best of all concerned. We allow it to unfold, and so it is. Amen. At this time,
Hang on, Barbara.
What's that?
I said, were you going to go into the breakout rooms?
Yes.
Sorry, I totally messed up. So as always at Jubilee, the order, the bulletin is just a suggestion, and I did mess up. So Terry, do we want to do the gift of song and then go into the breakout rooms? Let's do that. We're gonna have Terry share her song, and then we'll come back and go into the breakout rooms after that. Sorry about that.
All right.
Terry from the Jubilee Singers has a beautiful song that she would like to share.
I do. I just want to double check that you don't want to do the word message first, that you want me to go right into this.
Do that, yeah.
All right, so here we are. So we have another piece of music for you to really sink into and breathe along and sing along. We have a couple of different lines to choose from. This is another duet, one actually from me and my husband. So here we go, and I hope you'll find it to be useful.
Please breathe along with me. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe out. When I breathe out, I breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe out, I breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
Woo! Wow. Thank you so much, Terry. What's your husband's name?
Daniel.
Yeah, that was beautiful. It's so soothing. Very, very needed, and it's such a good reminder. So now we'll do the passing of the peace. You know, this is so much a community, and part of what makes a community is those connections we make to each other, even if they're super brief. And so if we were in the room, we would get up and we would go around and hug each other and all those, like, bow and do all those things. So this is a time to do that. We'll be gone from this room for about 3 minutes, and then at the end of the celebration, we'll have time for deeper connection. We'll go back into breakout rooms. So it'll look like it's throwing you off Zoom for half a second. You just accept the invitation, and then you can unmute yourself, do a little passing of the peace, and then accept the invitation to come back into the room. And it's an important piece, even if it doesn't seem like it, even if it's a little scary for us introverts, it's an important piece just to have that Jubilee connection and the web of love continue. So I'm going to send you all into breakout rooms for about 3 minutes, and we'll see you then.
Welcome back, everybody. I think everybody's back right now. And we are honored to have Daniel present another gift of song for us.
Okay, hey again, folks. Really grateful to be with you all in this moment, and I always feel that way. I always love these coming together times on Sunday mornings. I always have for 20 years now, and on this day it feels particularly poignant for me because there's just I have so much of a deeper sense in me right now about what our community really is, not only the Jubilee community, but the community around us in Asheville and the larger community, and the different ways that shows up and what it looks like. And I wrote this song like over the last few days, and so it's very fresh and very alive. He got off his final call and he turned on the TV just in time to see some footage that he didn't want to see. But before he could avoid it, he was shaken to the bone. He heard moaning from the ache beneath the ground. There was moaning from the ache beneath the ground. He thought about the history and he thought about the guns. He thought about the victims and the daughters and the sons. And he thought about the way he turned his back on everyone. Was too hard to feel the ache beneath the ground. Just too hard to feel the ache beneath the ground. He wondered why he didn't stand up for that guy at his old job when they asked him his opinion about who should get the nod. He thought the black dude better, but he feared a lightning rod. Now he feels it in the ache beneath the ground. It festers in the ache beneath the ground. He thought of all the times when all he did was shake his head, never getting past the comfortable life that he has led. Now he wonders if there's more to this than what he has been fed, that calls him to the ache beneath the ground, draws him to the ache beneath the ground. You may wonder what has this to do with you. It may not be about what you did, but what you've yet to do. If you're alive, you've got a chance to dance anew. Ask your heart what's yours to do. If you're white and breathing, you're more lucky than you know. Within the gifts of privilege are some seeds for you to sow. We gotta do some digging, we don't know what we don't know. Can you feel the ache beneath the ground? And kneeling to the ache beneath the ground. 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 Thank you, prayers out and in. So, speaking of the wider community, we have some words from our Jubilee Earth team. So welcome Vineet Allen and Molly Milner to share some of your perspective on that. You're muted, Molly. There you go.
Well, if Vineet's not on, I better start. We have very limited time. Good morning, all you dear Jubilants. This is Molly Milner,
Okay.
and I'm with the Earth Team. As Joanna Macy says in her newest book, A Wild Love for the World, we can only protect each other and restore the planet as a community. One of the many missions of the Jubilee Earth Team is to continue to share encouragement and hope as we connect jubilants to local, national, and international efforts on behalf of our shared Earth. We are asking that we all stand up and take action in these ways. First, by continuing to raise awareness within our community as to the positive and hopeful efforts for Mother Earth and the world. Secondly, our Earth Team is continuing to educate our community on the challenges humanity faces from climate change. We are currently seeing the effects on the poor in our local community from flash flooding and moves to build toxic energy industry near vulnerable neighborhoods, such as the building of an asphalt plant in East Flat Rock. We also raise awareness about the degree of loss in our bee population by sponsoring Monarch informational talks and giving out their seeds. We have promoted reading the book, Drawdown, the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. And we present our own Earth Team member, Dr. Roger Helms' series on classes on climate chaos and awe. Dr. Helms is a senior scientist at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, retired. Thirdly, the Earth Team is developing opportunities for our Jubilee community to join larger efforts that make a positive difference for our world, locally, nationally, and internationally. You can take action locally by joining Mountain True and the Sierra Club. We recognize that most of us are spiritually connected to our mountains, forests, rivers. When we are caring for our sweet Mother Earth and ourselves, we are the Earth, becoming conscious of ourselves. Our Earth Team will continue to encourage you to keep the faith and take positive actions and breathe. Thank you.
Hi, I can jump in now. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. So thank you. Wasn't able to unmute myself. So in addition to what Molly shared, we also want to highlight World Environment Day, which happens on the 5th of June every year and thus just took place this last Friday. World Environment Day is coordinated by the UN and is celebrated in more than 140 countries and has been going since 1974. Its theme this year is It's Time for Nature. The opening statement on the website is, the foods we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the climate that makes our planet habitable all come from nature. Yet these are exceptional times in which nature is sending us a message. To care for ourselves, we must care for nature. It's time to wake up, to take notice, to raise our voices. It's time to build back better for people and planet. This World Environment Day, it's time for nature. Yet, despite the importance and global participation in World Environment Day, few Americans even know about it, let alone participate. Of course, here in the US, we have Earth Day, but why do we ignore the day that's celebrated around the world? Could it be that this is another symptom of our culture that continues to promote individual competition over community and collaboration, and that it does so at a time when climate change, species extinction, deforestation, and the many other huge issues that threaten our planet require more global collaboration than ever before? Our prayer today is that we come to our senses and join the human global community in our shared challenge of reducing our impact on the planet to one that is sustainable, regenerative, and in harmony with nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Molly and Vineet. A very timely and needed message, even as ironically our Earth is getting just a little bit more air to breathe with people quarantining and so on. Now, relax, rest, and please hear these holy and ancient words. From Deuteronomy, chapter 5. Observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, as the Lord your God has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your ox, your donkey, or any of your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns, so that your male and female servants may rest as you do. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. And from Mark, chapter 6, 30, 32. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. So today I'm super excited that our very own Jubilee minister, Jay Joslin, Jubilee's minister of ritual, teaching, and counseling, is offering today's message, which is choices, hard times, or holy rest. Jay's been a member of Jubilee for 20 years, and he's actually been on the staff for 18 of those years. In addition to his work here, he's also developed a trauma-informed curriculum of transformation for those people who've experienced addiction. Jay's the founder of a residential program in Asheville called Firebird Transformations. That sounds really powerful. Most of you know Jay, and I've actually had the pleasure of knowing him pretty much ever since I started going to Jubilee in 2002. I love Jay. Jay, for me, when I'm with Jay, it's like stepping into a warm bubble bath. He is a huge heart, and he's also super smart and wise. One time we had lunch, he was using all these big words. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? We've also prayed together as prayer partners at the Western Wall. He has such depth and wisdom, and I'm so excited to hear his message. Jay, take it away.
Oh, shucks, Barbara. Thank you. Good morning, Jubilee. So, a friend of mine told me this, and it seems so true, that normal is just a setting on the washing machine. Since he said that, I've looked at the washing machine and nearly broken down sobbing. So, say since early March, we've had months of quarantine, economic meltdown, this whole concept of social distancing. It's a new thing. And now we're in this profoundly difficult moment of our lifetimes around this horrific idea of, and the horrific reality of, police brutality. So let's enter this moment of reflection with a deep breath. Observe the Sabbath by keeping it holy, as God has commanded you. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath. On it you shall not do any work. Now, in times like these, there is an immediacy, reactivity which develops. These are hard times. These are crisis times. But I'm going to put out there that we need a holy rest, a Sabbath of mindfulness, a Sabbath of imagination, that we may step forward, rightfully prepared to do the work owed from us. But first, let me share with you how I most recently relearned the value of taking a holy break, which I needed like I needed a hole in the head. Now, last year, I had a brain tumor and subsequent neurosurgery at Duke. For 3 months, I was told, no work, no nothing, just rest and be gentle on myself. It was terrifying. Catch up on books, I'm thinking. I could focus my creative energy. I can meditate. I'll be surrounded by friends who are bringing me comfort food. And I'll imagine for myself a reset button, a new way of living, a new form of life ahead. A new form of life ahead. Well, sometimes when you ask the universe for a feather, it gives you a bird. Because bless that brain tumor, that was the most powerful time of my life. Not because of the rest, but because of some really intense and powerful realizations and magical experiences that I still shudder to describe in words. But caveat, you do not need a hole in the head to experience magic and miracles. But I highly recommend a timeout. Breathe deeply. Let's take a moment to recognize the gravity of what's happening nationally and right here in Asheville. It's important to frame this by saying that we don't know, obviously, what it's like to be in another person's shoes. But sometimes it is fair to say that we can be in the same shoe store, for example. However, we can often make the mistake of pretending that we've been in the same shoe store. Oh, honey, yeah, I know all about it. I've been there too. I feel you. No, you don't. But it's an understandable mistake that we make. It's a common impulse of sympathy in human communication. But it's something that we especially have to be mindful about when communicating in times like these. Because we're struggling to hold ourselves together and to hold ourselves accountable as we cry at injustice against Black people and also against injustice against immigrants and against Indigenous people. Not just in this current moment, but we're looking at 4 centuries of American history. This upheaval is a multi-generational struggle. And that's why it's important to say, we don't know what it's like to be in the same shoe store. We cannot know unless we've lived it. What a multi-generational experience of injustice feels like. But we can be good allies, good partners in this struggle, and ask how to best serve in this moment. Breathe deeply. I know you know the feeling, especially over the past 6 months, that there's so much going on that a week, it feels like a year. Something awful happens. It dominates the news cycle. No, buddy, that wasn't 3 weeks ago. That was Tuesday. The fancy description I've heard tossed around is stress-induced time perception deficit. Another term I've heard used, and the one I used myself, is I can't even. But it's a phenomenon of experiencing a shared cultural whiplash, sharing mutual stress. Now, to do what's needed of us, to rise as we're called together, we need jubilants to be ready for the long haul. But let's face it, most of us are spent. We are burned out, crispy critters. To transform these hard times, we first need rest. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to them all that they had done and taught. Because so many people were coming and going, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. Rest at a solitary place. When we're overwhelmed and stressed out, we take a deep breath. Ruach, the spirit of life. Now, isn't it interesting that this social global crisis over the past several months, leading up to the past 2 weeks, has to do with breath? Starting with a few reports of a highly contagious respiratory disease in China, to the COVIDization of our lives, to chanting in the streets, "I can't breathe," to an entire planet which we've observed with a newfound fascination from our lockdowns. CO2 and sulfur emissions have suddenly decreased. Clear water returning to riverbeds unseen in generations. Greenery flourishing past cement barricades, and wildlife roaming in cities. Lockdown causing an inward look-see. Earth gets a moment to breathe without a ventilator. A blue-green dream of hope born from fear. Some people still alive last year never knew that they would become guardian angels, let alone guardian angels of justice, reminding us of the imperative to thrive, the imperative to breathe, of everyday freedoms yet unborn. A litany of martyrs from George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, countless unnamed, to COVID's ominous spikes and the somber binds of death connecting these stories. Is it possible that there is hope here? And Jubilance, I believe there is. And it begins with keeping an entirely different kind of Sabbath, to clear out our inner valleys of the soot that have long obscured the distant mountaintops to which we have long aspired. Breathe deeply. We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Or we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. It's a hymn used by our Unitarian Universalist friends, written by Carolyn McDade, based on biblical themes. Some of the verses, as you'll hear, are familiar in the civil rights movement. Pray with your feet, one pastor at the Interfaith Vigil said on Thursday. You've heard it before, and Jubilance, you've lived it before. Creation spirituality is made for exactly this moment. The intersection of contemplation and justice. In his book, Occupy Spirituality, Matthew Fox says, we have to walk our talk and do the inner work that allows the outer work to be authentic and also effective. Again, we have to walk our talk and do the inner work that allows the outer work to be authentic and also effective. What I take that to mean is that when we pray, when we meditate, when we breathe deeply, we have an open window between the microcosm of our lives and the macrocosm of the universe. We have an opportunity to be aligned with creation's greatest intended purpose, from the streets of Asheville and the block to somewhere here deep in the gut. But we need to take a beat. Listen for the call, that we may make our prayer purposeful more than a wish. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn. And we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Or we'll build a land where peace is born. We'll be a land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Or we'll be a land of people so bold. Profound gifts will come from having this sacred time to rest, while listening for the call to serve as we are needed. We may think that we know exactly where we are supposed to be in this struggle, only to be surprised to find where we are put. You know, as I lay in that bed, recuperating from surgery, feeling kind of helpless at times, there were happenings which I'll never adequately land the right words for. It wasn't the pills, I'll have you know. But I can say that I experienced callings which clarify my purpose in life. I know you have in your own life too. I can say I no longer have time for BS. I've cleared out both figuratively and physically distractions that muddy my ability to be present. And it's more important than ever to communicate life's imperative to thrive. Every being is built to thrive. And I believe that the only true obstacles are built by those who are wishing to cheat the system. And this is where injustice begins, and so also begins the trailhead, one of the many trailheads of service. So for many of us, this exclamation point in history that we're experiencing, it isn't a wake-up call. It's that disquieting hour after the tornado has passed, and many just don't know what to do. In times of crisis, we have an instinct not just to protect ourselves, but to protect and shield others, to listen for authoritative voices, heroes in the nation and civil rights legends here in Asheville who know what to do, from the Reverend Tyrone Greenlee to Commissioner Al Whitesides here on Buncombe County Commission, to organizations like the longstanding YMI, to hood huggers and Burton Street Peace Gardens. As we await further instructions, not just for this moment, but for daily systemic transformations, let's keep a Sabbath to build up strength for the trail ahead. Keep a Sabbath, not just for a day, but for generations of work. Let's keep a Sabbath of learning and listening. Keep a Sabbath to honor those who cannot be with us, but who have shaped us. And keep a Sabbath for the earth that is sustaining us, the breath of us all, the spirit of life. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Oh yeah.
Thank you, Jay, so much. So praying with our feet is a big part of what Jubilee is all about. For all of these 30 years, we have given away over $2 million to organizations in need. And right now, all of those are, this quarter finishing up, we'll be giving to COVID relief, and next quarter we'll be going to organizations that have leadership that are people of color and doing good things in the Asheville area. So we'll tell you more about that soon. But here we are, this amazing community. I see all these brilliant faces that are part of the leadership in this community, starting new teams, holding down the board member, the board team, all of these amazing human beings here today. And we can only keep doing this even online, if you all keep giving in a fashion that you would in the past. So keep pledging, keep giving to Jubilee. You can do it in one lump sum, or you can do it weekly or monthly. But if we want to get back into our space someday, hopefully in the near future, we will need all of that to keep coming. We're going over, so I just am going to be really quick about the Jubilee in action. Make sure you're signed up for our newsletter. All of the things that we are doing are in our newsletter each week. We sent out a letter this week with Jubilee standing in allyship with our communities of color in Asheville and beyond. Make sure you read that. There's also a link of resources for people to get involved. So where to pray with your feet, whether it's learning more about white privilege and racism, or getting involved with organizations that are doing the meaningful and sometimes tedious work of making change. There's also Vespers coming up this week with Jay on Wednesday, and Barbara is going to start a Tuesday call to have people come together and connect more about the Sunday celebration. Don't forget there's the Soul Force Vacation Bible School that just started, and several other amazing ways to get involved with Jubilee this week. The new communications team is rolling, and there's still space to get involved. And there's also a new connection team, finding creative ways to get together and create community during this time. So if you're interested in either of those, check that out. And also there's several people who put together lists of organizations to donate to and ways to pray with your feet for our communities of color. So make sure you check those out as well, in addition to the ones that we've put out. So that's Jubilee in action. Make sure you're signed up for that newsletter. And with that, I'll turn it over to Daniel for our dedicating our gifts.
All right. My piano goes off after 30 minutes. It'll come back here in a second.
Well, then
singing. There we go. Everybody sing.
sacred Sabbath, and where will you be praying for your feet, with your feet? Keep asking those questions. And as you do, to end our celebration together, Daniel, we're going to unmute everybody, so be prepared to be unmuted. Mute yourself if you need to, and then we will send you into the breakout room so you can have a deeper conversation and connection with other Jubilants. Thanks for being here. Look forward to seeing you all next week as we continue the online Jubilee experiment. Daniel, take it away.
You're making me acquainted to Jubilee.
Hey, Jeff.
Oh yeah, Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yowza.
Everyone, I'll be sending you to your breakout rooms. Enjoy the connection
Very good. Thank you.
soon.
Let's get off and try to find what's her name.